Hi guys. So I'm going to show you a couple different patterns that you can do today using swoops and swooshes. They're simple for beginners patterns. And I'm going to go over the different techniques that you can use to make your swooshes. The tools I'll be using are the Amazon stylus tools. The green is the largest. Each tool has a large end and a small end. I typically use only the large ends unless I'm using one of the smaller ends to drag out a swoosh. But the green is the largest. Then comes the blue. Then comes the white. Then comes the pink. And the yellow has an end that is good for dragging out the swooshes. It's a smaller end of the yellow tool you can use to drag out your swooshes if you don't have a swooshing tool. I use this as my swooshing tool. I got it on Etsy for about $7, and it's wonderful because it has one nice pointy end and one more blunt end. I use this tool to make micro dots as well. If you just search under Etsy Mandala swooshing tool, it shows up. But I'll try to remember to provide the link in the description. And I'm using Happy Dotting Company rods just to make dots, but you can use whatever tools you like or have. So first of all, what I'm talking about when I say swoops and swooshes is this is an older piece that I did, but it's a nice simple small piece so I can illustrate. You notice in this piece I have these swooshes here, which are just straight swooshes. And they make nice space fillers between your patterns. And then up here I have these curved swooshes around my walking the dots. And then over here I have these super swooshes that make a nice pretty pattern. So I'll show you how to make all of these patterns. All right, first of all, the straight swoosh, there's two different ways you can make it. You can take one of your styluses. I'll just take the white stylus, so one of your small medium styluses. I'm using the large end of the white stylus. And you want to load it up with quite a bit of paint. You drop a dot down and drag it out till you run out of paint. Drop a dot down, drag it out till you run out of paint. And of course, the bigger up in size you go with your tools, here's the green tool, large end, the bigger your swoosh will be. So that's a bigger top to my swoosh. All right. The other way that you can make these is by placing a dot, really load it up with paint, and get your pointy tool, your swooshing tool, either the small end of the yellow or whatever you use. And you want to place the tip of your tool towards the bottom of the dot and drag it across the dot to gather up some, you see I'm gathering up paint, and then drag it out. I prefer this method because I can get longer swooshes. And then I just closed in those little gaps. Let me show you that again. So drop a dot. I'm tapping it to get more paint, and you can even go back and get some more depending on how big. But the more paint you use, the more plump your swoosh will be. I start on this side of the dot and drag it. Drag it out. And then I close in the little gap. And then what you can do is you can take that method, place a dot, drag it out, I keep going back for more paint. You're pushing the paint along. And I close in this little opening there. You don't have to do that. It depends on what look you're going for. Then I go back and I get some more paint and I place a dot just below and in the little neck there of the previous one. And as I'm dragging it out, I drag out the side closest to my previous swoosh first. So that I can get it nice and close. And I close in that little circle, or that little crook in the neck. And I do the same thing to the other side. Just keep going with that. So a little bit shorter. Grab your paint from the top of the dot. So swooshes, you build them. And a lot of it is muscle memory, which is, of course, a lot of practice to get it where it's just second nature, but I promise it will become second nature. A lot of people struggle with swooshes, and don't be so hard on yourself because they take some time to get to learn. And even another one. To make a pattern like this. You can also use Nuvo drops if you have Nuvo drops, which these make great top dots, but you can also use these, and you don't have to buy all the colors. If you just got gold, silver, and ivory pearl, you'd be in good shape. But it's the same thing. You're using it like paint. These are actually more forgiving than paint when doing swooshes, as long as you don't let them touch up against each other, because they will turn into a blob. Same thing, grab it, taper it down. Put 2 drops just below. This will give you nice plump swooshes. Nuvo drops dry plump. Everyone's always asking, how do you get puffy dots? Well, one way is by using the Nuvo drops. They're a lot of fun. So there you go. Pretty. Okay, so those are the 2 ways to make a swoosh, a straight swoosh, with either 1 tool or 2 tools. 2 tools will get you a longer swoop, and with more of a kind of a this shape to it, where the straight swooshes are more tapered and shorter. Okay, let's look at some patterns that we can make with these. I've already put my dots down, just medium to large dots, whatever it does. We're practicing, so it doesn't much matter. And one pattern that we can make is, I don't know what you would call it, but it's this shape here. Okay, so let's make that. First, we want to put a dot on top. I'm using the green tool to do that. If you want a smaller dot, then use a smaller tool. And then this is not a very large dot, so I'm going to use one of my smaller styluses. So I'm going to use the large end of the white tool. And I'm going to start right at the top next to that dot we just made. Drop my dot down and swoosh around. Same way we made the straight swoosh, except this time we are curving it around the dot. See how I go back and get a little bit more paint? Okay. And then we can make a little pyramid of dots. 1, 2, 3. White tool. Push your paint. And know where you're going to end your swoosh ahead of time, because when I'm making my swoosh, I know I want to end it here. So I'm sort of aiming for that place out of the gate, because I know where to start and know where you're going to end. So there's one really pretty pattern. And again, you just want to practice these. Okay, now we can incorporate some walking the dots with this. So I'm going to put a dot at the top, and then I'm going to walk my dots using the white tool on this one. And now you can just swoosh around that. So I'm just going to put one swoosh here. So I'm going to go ahead and do another little pyramid of dots. And then again, got some more paint. And swooshed it down. Keep going back up to get more paint to push. And drag it down. So there's the pattern. We can do the same thing except with 2 rows of swooshes and 2 rows of walking the dots. So let's do that. Okay, and I'm going to go in with the green. I'm going to go up in size with my tool because I'm going to go to the blue because I'm going to have quite a bit of distance around here to go. So I'm going to put a dot. I'm going to really load it up with paint. I don't know if you can see this, but it's practically dripping off the tool. Put my dot down. And just push that paint along. Do it again on the other side. And push the paint along. You'll find that it's going to be easier to do these on a smoother surface. This is cardstock. It's easier to do it on a smoother surface, and so I would recommend if you're practicing, you could even get some of the ceramic tiles unglazed from Home Depot or whatever builder supply place, and practice on that surface because it's super easy to swoosh on, and it's also easy to clean up. Another thing you could do, and I did this when I first started, was after I base coated my boards in my black, I would then put a layer of varnish down and let it dry before I dotted. And that way I had a slick surface for swooshing, and also I had an easy surface to clean up mistakes. It was much easier to clean up mistakes off of a varnished surface. But don't put your grid lines on until after the varnish. That would be a disaster. Okay. Now, I think I'm going to go up in size to the green tool because I've got a really long distance to go. Top it off with a pyramid of dots. Load up with paint. And taper down at the end, and you can get them really close together down there at the end. Sometimes I'll even overlap them if I need the room. So you see how I just keep going back and forth, back and forth. Okay. Now let me show you how to make a lotus flower, which are pretty simple. I'm going to start out by walking some dots. When I walk the dots, I put a dot down first, then I go back and get more paint. And walk it out from there. That way my dots are the same size on either side of the top dot. Otherwise, I would have, if I started with the top dot and then just walked, then went and got more paint to do this side, this dot would be bigger than this dot, if that makes sense. Walk some more dots. Okay. I'm going to put a dot here. And I'm going to switch to the blue tool because I've got quite a distance. Start at the top. That's my dog. Okay, and now I'm going to go to a different color. You could do them all in the same color. I'm just doing a different one so you can distinguish them. Same tool. I'm going to go down a little bit, so a little bit shorter. Remember, know where you're going with it. So you want to take your time with these. They're not fast. But I think they're so much fun. And then you just keep repeating the same process. So a little bit shorter. And one more. There you go, there's a lotus flower. Pretty. Okay, and the last pattern that I'll show you is, I'm sorry, not the last pattern, next to the last, is incorporating the 2-tool swoosh. That's hard to say. I'm going to drop a dot down, load up quite a bit of paint on it. Take my pointy tool, drag it down. I'm going to use the large end of the pink tool to walk my dots. Actually, I'm going to use the small end of my pink tool. I want these dots to be small. So I put my one dot there, I go back and get more paint. Needed a little bit more paint on that dot. And then we're going to do that again. I'm going to go up to the white tool now, the large end of the white tool. And this time I'm going to put my dot a little bit higher. And I'll show you why, to give it a nice effect. My next dots are going to go right in this little space right here. So it gives it a nice peaked look to it when you do that, when you put your top dot a little bit higher. If you don't like that, then keep your dot a little lower. When you keep it a little lower, you get this rounded effect. But you could do that same thing over here. I could have put that orange dot a little higher and made a nice peaked, more of a I don't know, I guess a diamond shape. Okay, and now we're going to basically do the lotus design around our swoosh here. And this just gives you some different ideas for some things. When I have a pattern book that I made with Demi from Thoughtful Dots. And when I'm doing my mandalas and I come to my next row and I'm trying to figure out what do I want to do next, a lot of that depends on how much space am I trying to fill. And if it's just a small amount of space, I might do something like this. If I need to fill up a large amount of space, I might do something like this. It's nice to have all the patterns saved in one place. I think you should consider doing that as you move through your journey into dotting. Okay, so I am going to switch to the blue tool. And I'm just going to come up I've got a hair on my tool, come up at the top here. Definitely have a hair. Okay. Notice that on the lotus flowers, the first swoop starts at the top. Okay. And same thing, I'm just going to go down in a little shorter. Oh, and if you had guide marks, you see your circular guide marks, like I'm using this guide mark here, but if I was actually on a board doing a piece, I would have all those circles. So I would put each successive swoop down a guideline, or at least half a guideline, in between two circles maybe. But that's what those circular guide marks are there for, is to make sure, because that way then if you put it on a particular guide mark and you do all of your swoops on that same guide mark, then your mandala has symmetry all the way around. And that's what you're going for in them. So a little bit lower. And maybe one more. There we go. All right, and the last thing I was going to show you was how to make super swooshes, the really big ones. And to do that, you want to start off with one of your dotting rods. I'm going to use a 9, but you use whatever size. Like in this case, I was trying to fill up this space here. So whatever size you want this part to be is what size tool you use. So let's see, I'm gonna do blue, purple, and brown. Okay, so place a dot. And then double and maybe even triple dot it. Just hover your tool over the dot. Don't squash it down so that you can unload the paint. You're trying to make a mound of paint there. Take your pointy tool. Grab your paint from the up higher in the dot here. And you want to start out by making basically a lollipop. And then close in. You can leave it a lollipop if you like, if that's the shape that you want, or close in these circles here. And then you're just going to do the same thing again, just like you did, like we did with the straight swooshes. You're going to go down a little bit. A couple drops of paint. Off my tool. And again, you want to go close to the edge first, to the previous swoop, then fill in your little gap right here. So close to the previous swoop. And then fill in your gap. So there you go. There's some basic patterns. And every pattern continues to build. Like this one right here, you could have kept going with more swooshes. You could put 4 or 5 rows of dots and then swoosh around. But these are your basic patterns, and you just build from there. Hope that was helpful. Thanks for joining. Bye.